Okay, welcome back everybody to part 3. And as I promised you last time, we're going to dig into this power supply a little more and start wiring it, putting it back together. One point I want to make before we really get started is when I'm not working on the bench or on the radio itself, I'm looking at the schematics a lot of times on the current project or sometimes even future projects. And what I do is I will take the schematic, and some of the new guys out there, you may want to, this may help you and it may not, you can take it or leave it, but what I do is I look up the tube and the tube data of the various on the schematics, and then I'll take and I'll number, if it's not already written on the schematic, I will number the pin numbers on the schematic. Now, not all schematics now go in the order. Now, I've ran into some where pin 2 may be after pin 8. It's just according to how they draw the schematic. There's two thoughts on that, I believe. So I always go and look at the tube, the parts of the tube, and make sure I number it correctly. Another tip that I do, and the older guys, you can quit, you don't have to listen to this part. This is mainly for the newer guys. The tube, when you're looking at the bottom of the tube, the numbers go clockwise. So another tip that I do is I'll get under the bottom of the chassis of the radio, and I'll find pin 1, and I'll mark it. Now, I don't go around and mark 1 through 8 or what have you. I will just mark pin 1 so that when especially if it's a congested area like that, lots of components or wires, so that when I'm tracing out a circuit or following schematic, I can. It's a quick reference of finding pin 1. That's just me. That's what I do. Another thing that I do is about every radio I do is I make a notebook, and with all the data I can gather on it, all my notes, all my drawings, things like that. That's so that if I sell the radio, which I haven't sold many, or I get hit by the proverbial beer truck, somebody will have a record of what I've done or how I've messed it up or things like that. But that's just a little tip that I do. Okay, digging into this, I went ahead and started on the power supply. I was able to put the components, the filter chokes, and the speaker choke. I put a little divider cardboard that came out of these to divide it. I hot glued the components in, keep them from rattling around. I'm not going to put tar back in this, but I put some hot glue on it. And so I went ahead and I wired it. And my schematic, I went ahead and I updated the schematic for the new transformer with the modern color codes, so that the brown wires will go to the second AF filament supply, and the green wires will go to the RF first AF filament, the RF and the first AF filament supply, and the detector is the orange wires, and then the high voltage is red. So I just reflected that. Now, I also color coded this. This is my own color coding somewhat, but the red wire is the junction point of the capacitor, one of the filter chokes, and one side of the speaker choke. And then the red-black trace is the other side of the speaker choke, which they'll go to the board. And then the yellow-black trace coming out is from the rectifier tube going into the filter chokes network there. So one last check on it. let's see if we can get some readings. Just to verify what I've done. So according to the schematic, the red and the red black trace should be across the speaker choke, which is 560 ohms or so on any given day, thereabouts, and they'll vary from 500 to 575 ohms. What I found on several of them. Then there's 574 ohms, which I'm pretty sure that is across the choke. The other on the schematic, from the red wire to the yellow black trace, should be all the way across this these two filter chokes, and approximately 1400 ohms. So from the red to here, let's see, 1402. So I'm pretty sure that this is wired correctly. I went ahead and wired the fuse back in, and this will go to the switch and the AC line. I will cover this up with the cardboard, and then we'll mount this to the metal plate, mounting plate that goes into the cabinet, and we'll put the transformer beside it, and then we'll start putting all the hardware back on it, and then start wiring the transformer and the board all back together with the rectifier tube. Okay, let me show you how all this mounts together. This is this is the plate in which the power supply is mounted on. There is like a little carriage bolt. It's made out of aluminum material, and real lightweight. I'm almost sure it's aluminum, and it's a carriage bolt, and it goes in a square hole here, so that it holds itself there, and it comes up through there. I had a little story. When I was moving the radio from one table over to the workbench, one of these fell out the bottom, unbeknownst to me, and I've got a plastic toolbox down below, and it fell, and it didn't fall in the tray. It fell in a small slot and went all the way to the bottom. And you talking about a manhunt, a dragnet, whatever it was, to find this one little bolt. It took me about an hour and a half to find it, but I did find it. Okay, the choke, can, and capacitors will go in this. Another thing I wanted to, last time I did this, and I showed you, I had to change the cardboard. The cardboard I had was too thick. Okay. Also, I had forgot to add a ground to this particular. When all this was covered in tar, and before I melted and got it all out, there was a ground strap that came out and goes up to here, so I had to add that. And also end up having to extend this, because when I dry fitted everything, it wasn't going to go to where it needed to go. So that's another reason to dry fit everything when you do it. Alright, and then the transformer will go right in here. Now fortunately, I've already mounted this, and this is a repair, so I kind of see where these are going to go and where they're going to line up. Okay, but before I tighten these down, and this is the mounting strap. All three of those will come up through here. Well, and so it takes get them all lined up. And before I tighten them all down, okay, before I tighten it all down, I will take the cover, which is this, cover, and I will set it over it to make sure that it's lined up properly, so that it'll be able to bolt it up to the plate, and the cover will actually fit. So before I actually do the final tightening of this bracket, I'll make sure it's lined up properly. Okay. Now, what we're going to do, looking at the schematic, of course this is the black, this is the AC. So what's going to happen to this is our fuse, we will have one side of the AC line going into this. The other side will go into the toggle switch. One side of the transformer will go into the other side of the AC line coming in, and then the other side will go into the toggle switch and the AC line. It'll go through these little eyelets in the bracket that holds this, like that. Okay, the two brown wires here, they will go, if I can find my board, the board will be mounted thusly, like this. So the two brown wires, of course here's my ground, the two brown wires will come up and mount here. And I haven't decided how much of this wire to leave. I'm thinking about leaving quite a bit of it, maybe 3/4 of this, and rolling it and tie wrapping it, because I just feel, I don't know, kind of uneasy cutting it the exact length, but I definitely want to leave a little bit of extra. But the brown one will go to these two terminals, that is the second AF filament windings, and then the green ones here will go to the second bunch here. Then the orange wires will go to this particular one right here. Now these will not be wired up to anything, because if you'll remember, I mounted these two capacitors that were originally in the capacitor can, which the leads came out and went to here. So these two leads will be left open, left blank. Here's another little grounding strap here. Now, on this end, you've got going to the rectifier tube, which is the 80, which it will mount down here. So, through the filament windings is the yellow, so these two will go, and will go to the filament of the 80 tube here. Also, the two red wires are the high voltage. It'll go through here also, and will go to the plates of the 80 tube, rectifier tube. And what's left is the red with the yellow trace. That is the center tap, and it will, I'll put a grounding, put a lug on it and put it on the ground, so it'll be going to ground. Now, this particular yellow with black trace, it's the high voltage coming from the rectifier going into the filter chokes themselves, so it'll run and it will come down through here, and it will go onto the filament 1 on this tube to feed the filter chokes. Then the red wire coming out of the filter chokes themselves, that is that's the junction here, that will go to the very first pin here, and then the red one will go to the second, which is the B plus to the second AF, and this is just the B plus to the RF. So, and that'll conclude this, and it'll be ready to test the voltages. So I'm gonna do some studying about how long to cut these wires and how much to leave, and let me think on that a little while, and then I'll wire these up and show you the finished product when I get done. Alright guys, check this out. I've got it wired up, except I don't have the fuse in, but I've got it through my Variac, which is fused. So I haven't fused it because I'm going to wait until I get it into the cabinet ready to go and go through the switch and what have you. What I wanted to do right here is just put 110 on it. I did a slow bringing it up, checking the current, everything like that. Have no humming, have no heat or anything like that. So I'm doing the voltage checks on it right now. The tube socket for the 80 rectifier tube, I should have approximately 5 volts on the filament, and if I can get a good connection, right now I'm reading 5.09. Alright, and then up here on the, let's see, the second AF filament should be 4.8 volts. And let's see what I can come up with here. 4.96 volts. Alright. Then the next one is the RF first AF filament, which should be these two here. And, oops, should have 1.3, and I think this one was a little high a while ago. Reading 1.8. I'm not really worried about that at this point. I'm not really, this meter is old too. I need to get a new meter. If anybody has any recommendations for a good meter, let me know. On a good deal anyway. Now the next one is the detector filament, and it should be about 2.3 volts or so, and I'm reading 2.44 volts. Alright, now let's go to the high voltage over here. And then we're reading AC voltages right now. So I'm going to go to ground, which is where the center tap's at. And let's see, one side of the high voltage is reading 346. The other side, get a good connection here, hang on. 347. So all in all, I think this is a success. I think I'm ready to go and take and put this in the radio cabinet and do some final wiring. And then what I'll do once I get the switch and the fuse wired in, I'll put the cable on it, the terminal strip on the top of it. Then I will have all the tubes in place except the rectifier tube. Then I will fire it up, run through it, check the voltages, make sure we've got everything good. Then come back, put the rectifier in, bring it up slow, see what we've got, check the voltages. And in theory, it was working when it quit, and I think as long as I get my voltages right, going into. See, I won't know about my DC voltage until I get that rectifier tube in there. So I may try that. I'll have to think about that. I may try the rectifier tube without putting it in there and check my DC voltage. Let me think on that a minute. Okay. I've been reading some information on the set itself and the voltage readings and what have you, and actually the unloaded voltage, just plugging the rectifier tube in there, unloaded voltage is not going to tell me anything. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wait until I get the radio connected to it. All right. That'll be our next series. I appreciate all my new subscribers. I got several this week. Got some great comments this week. I really appreciate those. I appreciate you guys for watching and bearing with me, and any input that you have or any reference, refer me to get some more subscribers. I'd appreciate that too. And if you're not a subscriber, just reach over there and hit subscribe now. It doesn't cost you anything, and you can always unsubscribe me later. But I appreciate that. I enjoy doing this, and hopefully you guys can learn something from me, and I know I'm learning something every time I get here. So that's it for now. This is Larry in Tennessee. See you next time.